Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Historic Harrisburg's long-running series of fourth Monday programming, educational programming, and we happen to have a vacancy in the July schedule, so we were able to schedule this very quickly to present tonight's program on Harrisburg's market history. And we've got a lot of interesting history that extends far beyond just the Broad Street market, but much of this will be pertaining to the Broad Street market. And after we conclude the historical portion of the program, Tanis Monroy, who is here, he's the market manager. What's your title?
Executive Director.
You're the Executive Director. Great, because it's now a nonprofit organization.
Right.
And you're the Executive Director. Well, he's going to talk a little bit about the current status and the future plans and so forth, and then there'll be time for questioning. Jeb Stewart is here also. I have to give him credit for putting together much of the program. Jeb has a great store of archives and information at his fingertips. And also Joanna Hunt from the Historic Harrisburg office worked very closely with Jeb and also Chris Zyrol of our office to coordinate and kind of reorganize all of this information to make it make sense for tonight's program. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm David Morrison, and I'm the Executive Director of Historic Harrisburg Association. You may have been given or pick up, this is a two-page history of the market, which we put out in our electronic newsletter a week or two ago, and it kind of tells the story, a little bit of what you're going to be hearing today as well in pictures. We also have our updated calendar of events for those of you who want to know about future activities. And also, if you see this brochure and you're not a Historic Harrisburg member, this is a membership brochure, and memberships are very inexpensive, $25 a year and increasing from there for different categories of membership. But that's what helps us to make programs like this free and open to the public is the support that we get from our members. So many of you are members, I know, and we thank you for that. So without further ado, let's get started. I think we might be able to turn the third light out and we can see even better. So this is a tribute to Harrisburg's historic market houses, and each one of those is a picture in a different market house in Harrisburg, and we're going to be talking about all of them. So the oldest market house, or market houses I should say, were the markets on Market Square. And not uncommon in many Pennsylvania communities, large and small, to have a marketplace of some kind, sometimes open air, sometimes buildings of one kind or another, but very often right at the absolute center of town. And in this case, you can see that Market Street literally runs right between the two market houses. This is looking south, so this corner of the square, that's where Market Square Presbyterian Church would be today. But that wasn't built in 1858 when this bird's eye image of all of Harrisburg, but Jeb zeroed in on the market houses, and you can see how they appeared to the artist's eye in 1858, and that's indeed how they appeared. Here, let's look at here's one view of the market houses looking north. This is now where the Dauphin County Administration Building is on the southwest corner of Market Square. That's the old original Senate Hotel, which was a colonial-style building that sat on the northwest corner of Market Square. The later Senate Hotel that many remember that was demolished in the 1990s was a taller, very ornate late Victorian building. And in fact, I believe these buildings, taller buildings here, later became Goldsmith's Furniture. So a lot of history, but you can see that these were open-air market houses covered with a roof, but basically like a picnic pavilion. And yet there was stalls inside for the vendors to sell and display their goods. This photo was taken about 1875. The markets were demolished in 1889. I'm going to show you another. Here shows just 1880 or so. Part of the reason Harrisburg was becoming a more sophisticated and larger city as the 19th century unfolded, and having a market like this in the center of town became increasingly sort of problematic for a number of reasons. First of all, you see all the buggies and horses and everything that are clogging the street. This is a trolley car track that kind of wends its way around the markets, but it must have been difficult for the trolleys to get through. And in those days, many of the vendors sold live animals, chickens and other things. So I mean, it was sort of a chaotic operation, if you will. So there was a movement by city fathers to say, you know, let's move the market out of Market Square. They didn't want to get rid of it, but they realized that they needed to, and that led to kind of the decentralizing of the market. So the city was bigger, and there still was, supermarkets still didn't exist, but the way to sell was directly from the farmers to the customers at market houses. So this was one of the first satellite markets, if you will. This was the State Street Market House. I didn't even know about this until Jeb produced the picture just a couple of days ago. But this was in the Old Age Ward, North 4th Street and State Street. Now that would be about where the Capitol East Wing addition would be today, the fountain, right behind the Capitol. Was the Old Age Ward, and that building was prominent right on State Street, which went right up to the back door of the Capitol in those days. Now here's the East Harrisburg Farmers Market. This was on Allison Hill, 14th and Market Street. There's still kind of an open area there. I think there might be a fast food business at this point and a parking lot, but that was where this was torn down. A lot of people remember shopping there, so I'm going to guess this may have. Jeb, when would you say this went out of business or was closed?
I would say probably in the early 1960s.
1960.
That's like a Hudson, a 1953 Hudson there on the right, and like a 52 Chevrolet or Pontiac right on the left. In the center. And that's not, it's not a stone market, it's a brick market. I remembered it as being stone.
It's brick.
Yeah, you're right.
The dealership must have done a booming business in Harrisburg, because we've got a lot of old pictures of different places around town, and there's almost always a Hudson in it. Okay. The Chestnut Street Market and the Madrid Ballroom, which was on the second floor, where you see the big windows on the second floor, that was sort of a mixed-use building, a very ornate Victorian building with towers and ornate architecture. Later simplified, which they often did to Victorian buildings, and take the tower off and try and modernize it a little bit. So the picture on the right dates probably from the 1920s. The Madrid Ballroom started out as an auditorium. In the early days, they just needed a sort of an all-purpose room in various parts of town, but it evolved into a ballroom when ballroom dancing and big bands and jazz and so forth. A lot of the famous acts, American performing acts, came to the Madrid Ballroom, and some of the people, Caleb Jackson, for example, remembers going to the Madrid to hear jazz bands in the 1950s. I think there was a fire that brought that to an end in the early 50s. Were you going to say something?
Yeah,
to that?
just one thing. You can see the edge of Salem Church. So this is context of how the market would have been just to the right where B'nai B'rith apartments are now. And also, this was built in 1888. A year before, the markets on the square were demolished in 1889, anticipating that was going to happen.
Oh, I see.
So they wanted to get this built before the markets were demolished, so they had a downtown market still at a location that was more appropriate at that point.
I also interjected, Ken Fru's father, who was a jazz trumpet player, played in that Madrid Ballroom many times.
We should get you up here to do more.
We love to
No, I'm
have
from
audience
Camp Hill.
feedback, so don't anybody be hesitant. If you've got questions or comments, we welcome them. Now we come to Broad Street Market. The Stone Market House was really the first part of the Broad Street Market. The corporation was founded in 1860 by the Verbeck family. They created a business called the West Harrisburg Market Company. This was kind of considered West Harrisburg in those days. We'll get around to East Harrisburg. In fact, the one you saw in Allison Hill was the East Harrisburg Market. So that was kind of how they defined the geographic extremities of the city. But the building was completed in 1863. By then, the Civil War was in full tilt, and Camp Curtin was the large training camp for Union troops in what's now Uptown Harrisburg. And the market really had a major part of its business supplying food and supplies to Camp Curtin, because there were thousands, tens of thousands of soldiers training there at any given point in time. This photo probably dates from the late 19th century, perhaps the turn of the century. You notice a couple of things here. For example, these upper windows, there was really, that was the only way you could kind of ventilate and air condition in those days. So over top of the doors, I noticed that the third door over here, that window is actually tilted today. So they still are able to do that. What you don't see is Tanis's office here on the second floor. That wasn't installed and the windows put in until just a little bit later. I don't know just exactly when. Now this is interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, notice how large that arch is just by how small the two men standing at the base of it on the right are. This is right out here where the stoplight is at 3rd and Verbeck. You see a tiny bit of the Stone Market House over there. Where I'm standing is about the front door of our building out there. You can see trolley tracks running down the middle of 3rd Street. But this was Old Home Week, which was some kind of a big reunion that Harrisburg had, and a lot of communities were doing that sort of thing around the turn of the century, when travel was getting a little bit easier by train or trolley and so forth to go back to the town you grew up in. And but the fact that they did it right there at 3rd and Verbeck speaks to the importance of that intersection. In fact, a lot of people, old timers, would refer to this area as the square. And in other words, Midtown had a square that really was just as important as Market Square in Center City, because of the market and because of the businesses that extended in various directions. So 3rd and Verbeck was really kind of a ground zero in terms of business activity and a destination, if you will. Now there's a couple of interesting old maps that Jed has found for us, one from 1884, and we've got these books right out in the other room there. These are just the pages that pertain to the market, and what's interesting here is many of these are color-coded, so anything that's in pink or red or whatever it is, they're built of brick, and anything that's sometimes in blue or sometimes in beige, it depends on the edition of the map, that's a stone structure, which we know that to be the Stone Market House, and the green is wood, and yellow is frame construction. So a lot of these buildings were framed. Now, what's interesting here, 1884, you had the Stone Market, of course, completed, and the wooden addition, the wood market, some people call it, is where the plaza is today. That was built almost immediately after the Stone Market was completed. They realized that they needed more space. The market wasn't even 5 years old when they expanded, and they very quickly built a wood addition, and then about 10 years later they replaced it with a more durable, still made out of wood addition that stood there. The brick market was built in 3 phases, one there, one in the middle, and one to the end. And what we've discovered is that you can easily tell where the difference between the middle third and the third toward 6th Street is, because that's where you go through the arch to get to the far end of the market. And that used to be the end wall of the building. So it's a very thick brick wall. And what we think is that had a lot to do with slowing down the fire. Would you say so, Tanis?
It did. They said that if that wasn't there, it would have continued carrying through the whole building.
And when you look at some of the interior pictures, you can see the difference. I mean, some of the produce is still intact in that part of the market, but everything's charged to a cinder on that side. But there was the demarcation between the middle third and the third closest to the plaza. There's no interior walls that we're aware of, so whether that was a temporary wall where they knew that they were going to very quickly expand again, because this was 1874, 1878, just 4 years difference, and then 1886 for the final third of it. But you can see that they were still in the process of acquiring and demolishing buildings out here at the corner of Verbeck and Fulton Street. So that's why they really couldn't complete it right away. So kind of interesting how it grew incrementally. Another map from 1901, and a couple of things that this shows differently. Yellow meaning wood, tan meaning stone, and red meaning brick, and completed all the way out to where it is today. Also what you see is Capitol Street, which, if you know where the cinder walkway goes through, that really defines where Capitol Street used to go between the markets in the old days. And when Brett Peters was designing the plaza, he wanted to show the references of what used to be there. So that's why that cinder gravel area goes right through there. But it had trolley tracks that went through, and they made an S curve and continued up Marshall Street, and there was trolley right over here on 3rd Street. So not even just 1 block away, there was another trolley line. So that's how important the trolleys were at the turn of the 20th century. A few other things. This whole area was called Verbeck Town. And William Verbeck, the founder of the market, was a major real estate developer. He built a lot of the houses, and he named some of this. This is William Street. It's named for him. And Marion Street is named for his brother, Marion Verbeck, who eventually became the fire chief of Harrisburg. His name is on the fireman's memorial down there. Here's some other interesting things. These two identical looking buildings down here, anybody know what they are?
HMAC.
HMAC. That's HMAC, and that's the house that is identical to it. Of course, HMAC has big additions that were much later added when it became first the Jewish Community Center and later the Police Athletic League building. But those were just two freestanding suburban-style Victorian mansions from the 1870s, I would say. Very interesting. Another large Victorian house that's been recently restored by Nathan Hench and help me here. Anyway, those guys bought that house. We gave them a preservation award. The beautiful restoration there at the corner.
Charlie Wilson used to live there.
Charlie Wilson's old house, yeah. Ron Wetzel, the other one. So anyway, here's historic Harrisburg. We were rebuilt sometime after 1901, so it was a couple of buildings separately, but now it's one building. So a lot of fun looking at these old maps. Now here's looking east. You've got the stone market in the foreground and the brick market in the background. You can see the wood market right here where the plaza is today. And you can see that this was a row of very busy businesses facing the market on the north side of Verbeck Street. And down at the end, the whole market area was surrounded by mixed-use and commercial buildings. I mean, it was a thriving neighborhood. Dozens, if not hundreds, of businesses in the area. And you can see that horse and buggy was still the dominant method of travel, and that took up a lot of space, and it was, it wasn't like you could parallel park or anything. I don't know how they managed, and the crowds and everything. Here's another view, but this shows with almost all motorized vehicles. One buggy in the front, but other very early primitive trucks and Tin Lizzies parked along there. But the other thing that this shows, this is looking the opposite direction. There's a brick market in the front, and the stone market is in the rear. But see how much retail activity is occurring on the sidewalk between the building and the vehicles. I mean, that was in an era, the 1920s was when there were, I think, as many as 750 vendors in and around the Broad Street Market. And the ones who rented outdoor space sometimes spent years waiting to get an indoor space. And that meant, you know, being out there in January selling eggs on the sidewalk, but that's what they did. That's where the customers were. Now here shows the wood market in the center and horse and buggy days. This is a trolley track that I was referring to earlier, going right between the markets. There's the brick market on the left or on the right, and we've got another photo, I think, that will show it even more. Well, that's coming up. This is a picture. We've had this on our social media as well, and a lot of people have used this picture showing the 1886, the final third of the building, and you can see where the roof line changes ever so slightly there, and it changes ever so slightly again there, and you can see it in the upper roof line as well, that those thirds of the building, the window configuration is different as well. If you really look carefully at the market, which I didn't really look carefully at the window configuration until we went and looked at it after the fire, and you can see the difference of the stages of construction. Here comes a trolley. I guess we've got the brick market there to the left. The wood market is barely visible to the right, but this would have been in the 1930s by the look of the automobiles that are squeezed in between the trolley coming through. But trolleys were a very prevalent form of transportation up until, I think, the last trolleys ran in Harrisburg around 1936, and then the whole system was replaced with buses. Now we come into the later part of the 1900s, the 20th century, and one thing I should mention is that while we sometimes refer to markets not only in Harrisburg but anywhere as public markets because they really sort of serve the public and so forth, a lot of them aren't publicly owned or government owned, or weren't in the early days. They were businesses, just like building a shopping mall. And the idea was that was a great way to start a real estate empire, is to build a market house and rent out all the space to vendors. And so the Verbeck family did that as a business venture, and the people that started the other markets did the same. But eventually, they no longer became profitable. They were losing money, and nobody wanted to own a market anymore because supermarkets by the 1950s were taking over. So the last gentleman to own the West Harrisburg Market Company, at Broad Street Market, Harold Slepian, he was here in this building when we had a party recognizing the people who restored the market in the 1990s, and he sold it to the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority, which is sort of kind of the last ditch thing that happens to properties that aren't going anywhere otherwise. And so the Redevelopment Authority took it over, meanwhile, one thing I should say is that Historic Harrisburg, we were founded in 1973, 50 years ago. The very next year, 1974, Historic Harrisburg's president, Mary Ann Faust, got the market listed on the National Register of Historic Places, which was a tremendous accomplishment. Much harder to do that today. We're in a very small way helping Zembo Shrine to get on the National Register. That's taking years, and they've hired a consultant. You know, it's going to cost them over $20,000 worth of consulting fees, and hundreds of pages are needed. I think what Mary Ann submitted is maybe 4 pages long, and that was enough to get it listed. So I don't know why that is, but we're just grateful that the market was done 49 years ago. And that means that it's eligible for donations, which right now is very important. Grants, a lot of grants you're only eligible if you're a nonprofit organization, or if you're listed on the National Register. So Broad Street Market has both of those advantages. But that was a very early brochure in the era when the Redevelopment Authority was owning the market, and they actually did a lot of good work to restore it and revitalize it. But running a retail operation was not their thing. So, and there you can see also the two black and white photos kind of show what the market stalls looked like in the old days. How many of you remember the old white market tables that used to be in there? That was long before all the fancy stuff with granite countertops and all of that. You just got a white table that had sort of lip around it, kind of like a pool table, and that was whatever you were selling, you sold it off of that white wooden table. And that's what you see both of these vendors. And a young child selling eggs, I believe, and this lady selling, I'm not just sure what. Here's a newspaper clipping from when the Redevelopment Authority was renovating the brick market. They did a pretty thorough gut job in the 1970s. And in fact, it says in the little newspaper caption that the vendors were moved to the stone market for the duration of this renovation. So what we're going through today has happened before for other circumstances, but the idea of being uprooted and dislocated and so forth. In fact, the renovation of the 1990s was kind of had the same thing. When that occurred, that was a major renovation, and they had to sort of play musical chairs to keep moving the vendors from here to here to here as they renovated portions of both the brick and the stone market. But the goal is always to disrupt the continuity of their businesses as little as possible. This is from the brochure that was created after the market was renovated by the city in 1996, and I think, and both buildings, okay, just mentioned that they were listed in the National Register, but this shows the interior, better lighting, the interior was painted. Really, the structure was not changed at all. Another major part of this renovation was new doors and windows, and it's a shame that those doors and windows were the architect was bragging that they would last 100 years, but unfortunately that hasn't happened. Maybe in the stone market they will. Now here, of course, is a couple of very dramatic photos of the fire. That is from Nagley Park on the West Shore. You can see how that fire is just so enormous. But what we're told is that one of the vendors had a very sophisticated alarm system that alerted her that there was a fire. You know, she got a message at her house at 1 in the morning, and she was able to call the fire department, and long before anybody would have seen flames. So that was another very fortunate thing. Her stall was right, very close to where the fan caught fire. She'd only been there 2 weeks, I think, but she's relocated to the plaza and you know, going to stick it out. So here's a couple of photos of the damage, and you can see up in this photo, it's very little damage on the interior. You see most of the stalls, signage, and everything is still intact. Whereas on this end, where the fire was at its worst, you know, it's a complete charred mess. And here you can see where at the end towards 6th Street.
David, could you point to where the fan was in there that caught fire? Just
Dennis,
curious.
you might know better than I, but I want to say right about here somewhere.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit further
A
up.
little bit further.
Yeah, probably right there.
Oh, maybe there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it started.
Okay. Yeah, that's. I remember seeing her stand there.
Yeah, it was near where Peach Ridge Produce
Oh, okay.
and then Galvin Alchemy was right there.
So anyway, the fact that this was constructed in stages, I think, has a lot to do with what may happen. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tanis to tell you a little bit about where things stand and what the plans are so far and everything. This guy hit the ground running. How long have you been executive director?
7 months.
7 months. And we're so glad that he was on the job when this happened, because this is a guy who's up to the very large challenge of dealing with all of this. And so we're going to do all we can to support you and help you, Tanis, but tell us what you know.
Well, thank you, David. So first of all, I want to say thank you for everybody for being here. We have almost 30 people here, and I should see Barbara Scully over there. Good to see you. So it shows that you guys care not only about the Broad Street Market, but the history of the Harrisburg community, which is something that attracted me to this role just a little over 7 months ago. I've always loved being a part of the community and seeing how I can connect people to one another and how best we can work together. So I'd say that's one of my best abilities, is that if you want to work with me, I'll have a job for you and we can do it together. No man is on an island, especially when it comes to creating a community. It takes everybody. And that's what's so great about the Broad Street Market. Our campaign, our fundraising campaign, is called More in the Building. And it's because we hear so many people tell us stories on how they grew up at the market. So we don't hear that people grew up in Harrisburg. We hear, I grew up at the Broad Street Market. I've been coming here for 50 years. Some we've met that they've been coming for 80 years. And it's a generational thing. You have your parents, your grandparents, even great-grandparents who've been coming to the market, which shows how amazing markets mean to people. Not only does it provide food to a food desert, but it also provides community across the board, no matter what your age, sex, background. It's a welcoming place for everybody. So currently, the Stone Building is open. So I want to let you guys know you're all welcome to come Thursday through Saturday. And the plaza, which we call the courtyard, is full of our brick building vendors. So for 2 weeks now, we've had close to 12 of our brick building vendors, and that continues to grow. So please visit them. And I'm sure you guys have heard about the structure that is going to be put up next to the grass lot and the Stone Building. So Josh Kessler, along with the City of Harrisburg and us, have all been working on kind of figuring out how we can keep the vendors at our top priority, because we want them to continue their business, not just outside, but have a structure that is safe, and they can keep there, and people can come in there throughout the market times. So we're working on our vendors to see how many of them can go there, and we feel confident that almost all of them will be able to. It might not be all 22, but it'll be very close. And it'll be the vendors that provide the produce, the eggs, the meats, as well as the fun honey wine, which is mead. So if anybody likes that, we'll have it. Golden Alchemy. And that can be completed just under a month. So we hope to have an official word from our vendors. A lot of them are working through insurance, which I'm sure all of us have dealt with it on car insurance and home insurance. It's very tricky, and especially when there's a business involved and then the City of Harrisburg building involved. So there's a lot of components. Some of our vendors are still trying to figure that out. What does it mean? When will they receive a payment for loss of income? Or will they, depending on their policy? But we're working through Harrisburg Chamber, Small Business Association, to give them as many resources as we can, because we want them to be provided for and taken care of. And currently we have 3 new vendors starting in the Stone Building. So come visit them, and that includes a mini pancake bar, a new pizza place, and also there's an Indian restaurant that we haven't signed on officially, but they're very interested. So our Stone Building is completely at 100%, and then even our brick building was at 95%. So once it comes back in 2 years or slightly less, we could have close to 50 vendors, which isn't quite 700. But I don't know how to do that, especially nowadays. But we're all excited to still be here. And I know if you guys can continue to support the market and the vendors by coming out or even donating on our website, it'll mean a lot to our vendors, but also our community. If anybody has any questions, I'm willing to try to answer.
Tanis,
Yes, ma'am.
how can people who are watching on Facebook Live, how can they find the place to donate? What is there a website? Is
Yeah,
there a fund?
so our website is probably the easiest, broadstreetmarket.org.
Okay,
But also if you're on Facebook or Instagram, there's links to that as well.
great.
Is there another question somewhere?
Yes, ma'am?
On the three new vendors you have in the stone building, are any of them from the fire?
No, they're brand new businesses that we had signed a lease probably in June. So it's an interesting time for them to come on board.
So do you have any more room in the stone buildings?
No, we're at
Capacity?
capacity for sure. And another thing with the stone building is we have a lot of improvements that we want to make to that building to keep it safe, to keep it going for another 100 years. So that's why that's also important to donate, because it'll go to helping the stone building. And I heard a sprinkler system, which is something that Chief Airline wants to help us with, to make sure both buildings have that.
That was my question.
The sprinkler system.
Why wasn't there one installed decades ago?
We've heard that there's a lot of older buildings in Harrisburg that have been kind of grandfathered into not having that, so that they just never switched over. It could have been cost, it could have been old wiring. We're not 100% sure, but we're hoping to learn from these lessons, and
Better future.
so we can move forward. Yeah, better future.
Better future.
Dennis, I have a question.
Yes.
The temporary structure in the corner where it's slot, what's your timetable for that in terms of erection and putting in all the electric and the infrastructure that's required to make it operate?
It's a great question. They're saying within 30 days they can get it up and running.
30 days from when?
It's a modular unit, it comes easier from that direction.
Yeah, so they're hoping to start maybe in the next week or two.
Okay.
Once we get a better idea of what vendors are going to be going over there. So from then, 30 days out. And it'll have running water, electricity, AC, and heating. So don't worry if you can't come to the stone building because it's hot. Come visit this new structure, which I don't know if it's going to have a name, but I think we're going to name it. But look out for that on our Facebook, rather than just calling it the structure. But yeah, it'll be AC and then heating in the winter, because City of Harrisburg, ourselves and our vendors, we're looking at most likely 2 years for completion of the new stone building. So this structure will be safe, sound, and it'll last. What was that?
You said the new stone building, you meant that brick building.
Yeah, the new, will take 2 years.
Dennis, has there been a contracting firm identified by the city or whoever at this point to go through the brick building to look at the rafters and structural system within both the part that hasn't been roof current
Right.
and to graduate to the point that it was? Has that assessment and inventory going on right now?
Not quite, but I know the city insurance and an engineer came last week. So they're kind of setting projections right now, and they feel confident that the structure is fully sound, so they won't need to replace that. So the next steps would be to start accepting bids, since it is government and they need to take bids. So
Sure.
I know they're looking to move fast on that.
Yeah, because some of the rafters look like they're charred.
Right.
And others may or may not be, and it may be a gradual thing.
Yeah.
So the question is, can they determine what rafters need to be replaced versus what can be refurbished?
Right.
Yeah.
And we've heard that, ironically, that the brick building will be built in phases again. So that's what we keep hearing. So back to the original. So there could be an opportunity where the first third we could bring back our vendors into that building, and then the next third and then the final piece at the end.
Do you know, Terrence, if the walls on the part that burnt, the brick walls, are salvageable to accept a new superstructure in terms of a roof, or do they need to be, maybe we don't know that yet?
It appears to
Because
be
that's architecture and
right.
history and part of the market, obviously, so I was curious about that aspect.
From what we've heard, most of it, and I know they're gonna try to rebuild everything as close to the original as possible.
So they may need to remove walls and rebuild them in kind?
Some, but very little.
Okay, because of the fenestration, the corbelling,
Right.
et cetera. Okay.
Yeah.
I asked an architect over the weekend, we were commenting about it, and I said, what does fire damage do to brick construction? He said, don't you know what a chimney is? Don't deal with fire.
Right. Yeah, we've heard if it was a wood structure like one of the old markets used to be, it would have completely gone.
Is there a question back here?
Yeah, and this may be more for Jeb or you, just it being, as you said, a National Register building, does the trust have to, come into this? What kind of considerations are there for it being on the register?
There might be an environmental review process if there is a significant change to the property, even though it's publicly owned, that should be seamless, I would think, to a degree. So it might, because it is a National Register property, and there's government money, funds involved, there might be an environmental review process with the State Historic Preservation Office. It should be, again, should be a no-brainer, depending upon. Now, the question is what changes might be made to the easternmost section in terms of a new roof that might emulate the clear-story roof, but might be different. Don't know that, and either way, there might be an environmental review process, and hopefully that'll be favorable across the board. Beyond that, and David mentioned this because it's on the register, there would be funding available conceivably through the Keystone Grant process and others for that matter for National Register properties. And I think, David, you may know, Keystone grants were awarded to the market in the past, were they not, for upgrades?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there's an incentive and also environmental review, and they're the two things above and beyond just the marketing aspect of it. And that's what's really cool about the National Register process, because it gives it cachet, as it were.
Okay, thank you.
Good to know.
Will you be having a contest to name the temporary market? Where people might, pay $1 a guess or $1, and then, you could lead it up to the ribbon cutting and maybe get some,
Yeah,
marketing out of that?
I'll check with the city of Harrisburg to make sure they don't have any ideas first. But if they say, hey,
Well, let them put their dollar in.
Somebody can write a really, really big check.
Yeah, that would be a fun community project. And have some fun with it.
We were assuming that just like all the other elements of the campus, that particular structure would be named after the material that it's made of. So being the stone market or the brick market or the wood market.
The steel market.
The steel market. The vinyl market. Steel and vinyl.
The Phoenix.
The Phoenix market.
Where's your dollar? I got it too.
Yes, so there's some concert benefits. One's going to be in August and one in September, and then there could be a few in between as well. So one of the fun ones we're looking at is having a tie-dye contest. So we're going to have a lot of white t-shirts with our logo and maybe the brick building logo. People come out and have fun with that.
Would they be at the market or some other venue?
Most likely the market, if it's nice out on the courtyard.
Concerts as well.
Yes.
I have a fundraising idea. just because I wanted to do it for myself, but
Okay.
maybe you could sell pieces of the destroyed building. Like I had an idea if I could get one of those window frames, that'd be pretty cool to have.
All right.
Like a fundraiser, or cut the beams up.
We did save some of the nails
Oh,
because
okay.
they were very archaic, and some of the nails were used in railroad tracks.
Yeah.
So they're very huge and thick. So we have a few of those that we saved.
That'd be cool.
So that's a great deal. Thank you.
One thing that Historic Harrisburg is planning for some time in August, I think, we occasionally do Saturday morning walking tours. And one of the ones that we were contemplating was to get people up to see the new buildings on 6th Street, which are the federal courthouse, not inside, but there's a lot to see on the plazas and so forth, and then up by the new archives building, and then come back down through a lot of great things to see in Old Uptown that have changed in recent years. So we'd be going right through the market to do that, and the suggestion was made, well, let's have a portion of the proceeds benefit the market.
Wow.
So we're gonna do that, and I'll coordinate with you, because maybe we'd like to have you greet the group as we walk through.
Okay. Thank you.
If you're, yeah, so.
Very generous.
Just to have more foot traffic, more awareness, more, attention to the goal, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, so, that's an idea we're working on. That would probably tentatively Saturday, August 12th. So those of you that get our emails, you'll see, more about this when it comes together, but that's the current thinking. While I'm talking about upcoming events on our schedule, it lists our pillar party at the end of August, a couple of activities here in this building, the jazz walk the Friday after Labor Day, and the gallery walk the Sunday after that. So please check that calendar or check our website for any of these activities, because bringing people to Historic Harrisburg means bringing them to the market neighborhood, and so there's always a synergy to the things that we do together, and that's why we like to coordinate and collaborate with Broad Street Market as much as we possibly can.
Excellent. Thank you, David.
Well, if there are no other comments or questions, there's some refreshments back there, which our dear friend and longtime member Robin Stewart has very generously brought. So feel free to linger around, help yourself. If you have further questions for Tanis or Jeb or me, we can just chat informally. But I guess we'll close down Facebook Live, and thank you again.